Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. It's been a bit of a while, but we're doing another interview and I'm joined by one of our previous guests, Sky Sports LaLiga commentator and friend of the podcast, Mr. Jon Driscoll. Jon, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks, Tom.
Good to hear. So we'll jump straight into it because time is short. I thought there isn't. I will start with the undefeated team in the league, Real Madrid, and it's a question that I've heard come up on your podcast, the Sky Sports Revista de la Liga podcast, and it's: do Real Madrid actually have an identity?
Yeah, I don't know is the answer. I mean, obviously they do. In that, all the obvious things about Real Madrid. They are wealthy, they're well supported, they are glamorous. How much of your identity comes from your playing style and your coach is what is open to question. I don't know what Zidane's style is, and their managerial appointments don't seem to fit a pattern, do they? They just seem to sort of lurch from one idea to the next, just trying to find a coach with a winning record, and then moving to Zidane. You were wondering. I mean, it's early days, isn't it? So let's be fair in that respect. But I don't, and he's a very inexperienced manager. If you think, he's been a number two, he's done his coaching badges, he's been in charge of the B team, the Castilla team, but that's it, isn't it? And so I was wondering, because of the lack of transfer market business, I was wondering whether he might go back to what was the plan when Perez first took over, so all those years ago when Zidane came in as a player, to have a mixture of local Spanish guys with the odd Galactico thrown in, and maybe that's it. As a playing style, I don't know. In a sense, they're defined by their great players. Big question about Ronaldo this season, isn't he? Well, there is no question. He is not as good this season as he has been in previous seasons. I mean, that's pretty clear. Only one goal in La Liga, whereas his record in every other season has been phenomenal. And so that's a question: is Ronaldo declining? Can Zidane find himself a style? And I must admit, I don't know the answer to those questions. But as you say, they're still unbeaten. They're doing okay in the Champions League, and they're joint top. So so it's hardly a tragedy.
Yeah, no, it's certainly one of the hardest questions in Spanish football right now. When you consider their main rivals, Barcelona, who we'll come on to next, obviously have their style that everybody knows about, the slick pass and the tiki-taka, which maybe has moved on a bit from tiki-taka now into more of a offensive and more bullish style of Barcelona we haven't seen before. But I mean, talking about the transfers they actually brought in, and it could be the reason why they've actually lost a few games. I wasn't too impressed by some of the signs. I like Paco Alcácer as a player, but I never thought he was the right guy to come in at Barcelona. And Umtiti, obviously, I've heard from our Liga expert Chris, he's a very good player, and I saw that during the Euros that he played well when he came in for France. But obviously he's still young and he's still raw and he's going to need to improve. And when they're playing someone like Mathieu, who let's just say it's a miracle he somehow is in one of the best teams in the world. Do you feel that the business could have been better over the summer to set them up for this season?
Yes, yeah, it could have been better. I think Umtiti will be a good player. He's injured at the moment, isn't he? So that's why Mathieu is in. So that's, and bearing in mind how new he is and how young he is, it seems that Barcelona are missing him. So that's a very good sign for him. Yeah. I'm with you on Alcácer. You know what? I'm yet to see what people can see in him. He's a good finisher. I just wonder whether that in the modern game at the mega clubs is enough. Because Luis Suarez is a good finisher, but he also he brings you everything else, doesn't he? He brings you the skill, the fighting spirit, the work rate, and all of those things. And so he seems a very expensive player to basically come in and give Luis Suarez a bit of a breather from time to time. It's a harsh assessment of Paco Alcácer, but that's what I think. I think I think Valencia probably needed him more than Barcelona needed him. And from last season being over reliance on Messi, Suarez, and Neymar, and not having anywhere to go, going down to Munir and Sandro. They're very well stocked, aren't they? Because Arda Turan's been playing that far forward. Rafinha's been playing a long way forward. Andre Gomez at a push could play in one of those wide positions. It really is the cover for Luis Suarez where they're short, and Alcácer is the man, and I'm not convinced that he is really the answer. But maybe, he's a backup, isn't he? So
Yeah,
maybe, realistically, that's what you get as a backup. But it is a bit of a short, it's a shortfall, isn't it? The two games they've lost are two games in which he's rotated quite a lot of players, and so it would suggest that their depth is not fantastic. And so for them to do what they want to do every season and sweep the board, it would seem that either those players have got to get better, or the key players have all got to stay pretty fit, because there seems to be quite a drop off. Understandably, obviously, when Messi's injured, no one can replace him. There's never been a player like him, but
of course.
it does seem to be a bit of an issue for them.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the Alcácer thing. I mean, I liked him at Valencia. Not he obviously, as you mentioned, he's a great finisher. But his movement seemed to work a lot more as well in that side. I mean, the goal that he scored against Barcelona in the 2-2, that was last season, was just showed that movement and skill that he can produce. But yeah, he doesn't really seem to be doing it at Barca yet. But who knows what time will tell. But obviously the third main team, Atletico, they started with a little bit of an early wobble with those two draws, but now they seem back to their best. Griezmann seems to be hitting form, although not in his penalty antics, and also Gamero seems to have improved throughout the season as well. So, and they're top, obviously. So it's good to see them top. But do you think they can sustain that level of performance throughout the season?
Yes, yeah. Given the conversation we've had so far, that there are questions against both Real Madrid and Barcelona, and so therefore, yes, there is a threat there, isn't there? There's Atletico there, and so unless Real Madrid and Barcelona are 100% on their game, then Atleti are there, and they are good enough to win La Liga. They've only conceded 2 goals. They beat Bayern Munich. They were the better. It wasn't a lucky win. They were the better team against Bayern Munich and beat them fair and square. Gamero got some criticism, didn't he, in his first few games, which shows you
Yeah.
how short term we are, doesn't it? He only just signed, and a couple of games without scoring. He hasn't
You're
done it.
telling me that as an Arsenal fan, seeing like Lucas Perez play and then
Yeah,
gets a load of
or
abuse after one
yeah,
game.
or not play, and people make
Exactly, yeah.
fun of him. So yeah, and they do have a lot of depth, a lot of players up front, and it's a question of in managing them. But the other day we saw the two speedy Frenchmen. They were both on, weren't they? Griezmann and Gamero. Torres was on, and Carrasco was on. As they were trying to break
Mm,
down Valencia, that was very attacking. When you bear in mind there's Correa there and Gaitan there as well, it's a lot of attacking options.
yeah.
And then they've still got all the strength. And I tell you what, a couple of their young players, Saul, I'm sure football hipsters know all about Saul, but Lucas Hernandez
Yeah.
came in and played at the back. Look, he looks a player, and his brother, who is on loan at the moment at Alaves, he's only 18 and a left back. I
Mm.
tell you what, he looks a player, Teo Hernandez.
Yeah, because their army of lone players seems to be that will stave them off the impending transfer ban. I mean, you look at Real Madrid and think that what they didn't bring in over the summer, and they've got a hell of a January transfer window coming up to try and rectify that. And they got players like Llorente or both Llorente's out on loan, but it's with Diogo Jota's someone I look at from Atletico who's gone to Porto and seems to be doing quite well. As someone a youngster who could come in next season, possibly try and get a starting spot. Um, but the last team in the top four, and I'm going to do these in pairs now to save time, and put Sevilla and Villarreal together. Sevilla, I find it astonishing that they're somehow third. I don't understand. They haven't won an away game since the 2014-15 campaign. They brought in Sampaoli, who's erratic to define him in some ways. I don't really know what he's trying to do at the moment. Still, obviously, he's a rather attacking manager, but then he'll go and have a 0-0 through the season. You're thinking, oh, well, I didn't expect that. So, can you put a finger on them and also touch on Villarreal, who obviously started off quite poorly, but now seem to have hit the ground running, and players like Sansoni have come in and really hit the ground.
Yeah, there's quite a contrast, isn't there? It's an obvious pairing, isn't there, because of their league positions and their ambitions. But
Mm,
Fran Escobar is a bit of a steady Eddie as a coach, isn't he? He was in charge of Getafe, he left, and they ended up getting relegated. So his track record is doing. His best job was at
yeah,
Elche, where he was solid. He will get Villarreal playing in that Villarreal kind of style, so that there is a club with a style, with a passing style, with usually in a 4-4-2. They've had injuries, but then, as you say, Sansoni has come in and scored that sensational goal. So Villarreal,
brilliant.
a good tick, 4 draws and 3 victories, but still undefeated. So yeah, a good solid start from Villarreal.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm with you on Sevilla. Um, they're all over the place. They've been lucky, really have been lucky in a lot of games in terms of other players being sent off, own goals, an iffy penalty in a game where they were trailing. Was at the Las Palmas game? I think they ended up winning it 2-1 with two late goals. Um, they they're defined by their transfer policy, Severe. That Monchi is, again, he's the football hipsters technical director, isn't he? And that everyone loves him because he signs these players and they sell at a massive profit. Obviously, Krakowiak and
Yeah,
Gamero with the
definitely.
big sales this summer. So they're constantly selling, constantly buying in players, and it's players that people who watch a load of football also, oh yeah, that's a good signing. Yeah, Sevilla have done it again and done it again. But how difficult is that ever to really build a squad with consistency
Yeah,
and
sort
really
of like
have a spot
Southampton in a way.
at the top three that are so strong?
Mm,
Which I think, in a sense, is why they've stumbled into winning their three Europa Leagues, in that they've
yeah,
been out of the running for the league and have been able essentially to throw all of their eggs in the basket of winning the Europa League at the end of the season because they've got good players, but
yeah.
it's too shambolic a start to every season. So, fingers crossed, if you're a Sevilla fan, you might say, well, somehow we've got 14 points from 7 games, which is probably more
Mm,
than we should have. And so, if he does start getting it right, if he does find out what his best 11 is, if all of these new players do settle in, then maybe they can have a crack at the top three.
yeah, certainly. I mean, it's just getting that away win
Yeah,
that seems to be the sticking point at the moment, Severe. But if they can get that, there's no reason why they can't even. Because obviously we've had that detachment of the top three from the rest. But if you look at any of the teams, you'd think it would be Sevilla to be the next one to sort of try and push up in that and challenge. The next pair I'm going for is Bilbao and Celta. Obviously, both had good seasons last season. Celta less so, in contrast their last performance, obviously, and obviously Bilbao, who have played also rather erratically. Where at the beginning it was a bit of a struggle, and then they went on four straight wins, and then have lost to Malaga after having a man sent off, which could have been two men sent off in fairness in the last game, and two goals in quick succession. So those two, what are your thoughts on those?
well, yeah. Again, they're a good pairing because they started the season very similarly, didn't they? In that I think they were the bottom two, weren't they? A couple of weeks into the
Yeah,
season. Celta have won their last 3 games, including a crazy game against Barcelona. And then in the previous game again, they'd scored two really late goals. Rossi scoring a goal, which was great to see. It's such a shame what's happened to him since his heyday, really with a succession of injuries. But he's back. He's not particularly old. He's only 29. Sisto's come in and looked good for Celta Vigo. They're another club that suffers from selling their best players. They sold Augusto, they sold Nolito, and and then they don't spend anything like the money. So they're another one that relies on always hitting the mark in the transfer market, and they've done pretty well. I think Barito is an excellent coach. I think if there is a big club looking for a good coach who will play stylish football, I think then Eduardo Barito from Celta Vigo would be the man. Athletic are athletic, aren't they? The issue for the future is how long can Adariz keep on scoring goals? Scored another fantastic finish at the weekend. If you're looking for a striker and who knows what to do in the penalty area, and he's not lightning fast, not particularly big,
no.
not massively
Yeah,
skillful, but give him the ball in the penalty area, and he's a man with a plan to score a goal. And he's just got better. I think his levels of fitness is superb for a bloke of 35, which in a sense has allowed then the experience, because normally the great tragedy of life and football is that you gather experience as you're too old to use it. But because he's so fit, he's managed to become a better player the older he's got. So he's a key player for Athletic. If I'm being really harsh about Athletic Bilbao, I don't
go on.
especially enjoy watching them at the moment because every game is a battle with
Mm,
the referee. I think Raul Garcia and Adariz are probably the main ones who just make everything difficult. And that Malaga game that you refer to, it was it was exciting, they ended up costing them because Balenciaga got the red card. You're right,
yeah.
Rosales. I thought Rosales, the Malaga player, should have been sent off. It was a clash, wasn't it? He put his boot up, didn't he? And called
Mm.
Balenciaga, who then reacted. So they were a little unlucky in that. It probably should have been 10 against 10. But it can, for a team with a great reputation who we're used to seeing play some great football, there is a little bit of a nasty edge to them at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, no, can't disagree. I mean, and we'll talk about Malaga next, who have. It was similar to last season, where obviously at the beginning of last season and halfway through it, they were dreadful, and obviously without Camacho there, who they lost to injury, and when he came back in the side, they were completely different. And then this season, it appears that their starting games have been sort of staggered again. That win against Bilbao has dragged them up the table a bit more, down from the bottom half, and it's still just inside the top half on 14th and whatnot. And I paired them with Betis, who are a team that I thought both of those bought well in the summer. In terms of Betis brought in the likes of Sanabria, and you saw Malaga bring in Johnny from Sporting Gijón, who is a player that I loved watching there last season, but still struggling to try and push themselves into proper established mid-table and into the top half, don't you think?
Yeah, and crucially, both new coaches as well, aren't they? So
Yeah, definitely.
quite a few new players, new coaches with a lot to get used to. They're on the same points, aren't they? Which is possibly surprising because I think Betis have played okay. Betis were unlucky in the derby, another team that was unlucky against Sevilla. Whereas I think they've got 2 wins, and both have been there have been circumstances around the wins. In that Eibar made 9 changes before their game against Malaga. It was in the midweek, and Malaga came through that one. Even then, they were a bit lucky. And then the other win was against Athletic Bilbao, and who Athletic were unlucky that it was 11 against 10. And so I think Juan de Ramos has got a lot of work to do. I think Charles has probably been, if you were to identify one player, I think he'd probably be the problem player because they probably need a really good centre forward. Sandro's finding his feet. I don't think Sandro's as good as Sandro thinks he is. He's come from Barcelona,
Yeah.
played quite a lot at the beginning of last year, and then only a couple of Copa del Rey games after Christmas, and that was all. That was all that he played. People love Juan P. At the moment, I think he's got a lot of work to do. I'm not surprised that Malaga is where he is, and that there isn't a bigger club in for him yet.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that people think he's great, he's got improvements to make yet before he's at the level of getting a big move. So yeah, a lot of work to do. Camacho is fit though, as you said. Camacho is an excellent player for Malaga.
Yeah.
They'll be
The
okay.
keeping was strong.
It's a question of where you think their ambition lies. Yeah, can they have a battle at the edge of the European places? That's probably the best they can hope for.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you think back at Malaga, and I remember the game where they just got knocked out by Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. Felipe Santana, I think it was, with a last
Yeah,
gasp, a
five
goal.
players offside.
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny just to think of when they had Van Nistelrooy and whatnot, and so I like Malaga, so it's hard to see them down there often. But the next pairing, obviously, and I'll sort of do this in a way of a quartet because it's 4 teams who have not sort of surprised but are doing well. The first pairing being Las Palmas and Eibar. Las Palmas in particular started brilliantly. And looks like they'd be the surprise of the package of the season early on. And then you've got Eibar, who obviously got the first Basque team, was it, to score in Madrid in 50 years or something like that. It was a ridiculous stat, and so they're doing decent on the same points as Las Palmas on 11. And then the other pairing is the 2 newly promoted clubs, is Leganes and Deportivo Alaves, who are doing brilliantly. I think Leganes was a stat where it's the best start of a newly promoted side in the last half century as well. So 4 teams to cover briefly, and they're doing reasonably well considering who they are.
Yeah, quite different teams in this respect, though. Leganes, extraordinary record, 3 away wins, isn't it, so far in La
Mm.
Liga? And as with Alaves, they haven't had a particularly easy run. Obviously, Alaves won away to Barcelona, which was incredible, and they got a draw away to
Yeah.
Atletico. They'll struggle for goals. That's going to be Alaves' problem. At the moment, 9 points from 7 games, and Leganes have only scored 7. And the last game was a win away to Granada at the weekend. So that's the issue for those 2 teams. Alaves have got a whole host of new players, including a couple of comedy strikers in Davison and Toquero, who we like to have a bit of fun with
Yeah.
on our podcast about those 2 players because they're not the most cultured players for Alaves. So they struggle for goals. Eibar need to start well because every single season they collapse after Christmas. But they have started well. Pedro Leon, who is a player worth keeping an eye on. Obviously not now to move to a big club. I think he's 29 now. Pedro Leon. He had his day. He moved to a big club
Ex Real Madrid.
and happened to go to Real Madrid when Mourinho came in. And Mourinho took one look at him and thought, no, he's
Not for
not the
me.
physical specimen I need, and he was out the door back to Getafe. But playing some superb stuff, and you've got to admire Ape. I mean, it's a magnificent story, isn't it? When you look at their attendances,
Yeah.
I tried to compare it somewhere, and the nearest I could find was about Grimsby, somewhere in the 5,000 region of crowd. It's incredible that they're eighth in the league.
Yeah.
And Las Palmas are great fun. They're hugely entertaining, aren't they? They counter attack well. They've got skillful players and a great story in that half their team on a usual match day are from the Canary Islands. So it doesn't get the publicity obviously that the
Mm.
Basque teams get for having a massive local core, but they do Las Palmas. It's obviously a difficult place to go. I mean, literally, it's a difficult place to go because um, other teams are flying for 2 hours before they get there. So it's like a European midweek, European away game, isn't it, when they go to Las Palmas? But then they have it going the other way. It's same for both teams, isn't it, in the other way? So
Yeah.
you can tell why they're strong at home. But they're entertaining. They've got 16 goals, they've conceded 13. So it's only the teams down the bottom who've got worse defensive records. And I think it's only Barcelona who've scored more than Las Palmas.
Yeah, and they are great to watch. I'm a big fan of Momo and Tanner, and I'm actually a bit disappointed they lost William Jose. And obviously he was on loan, but annoying they didn't get him back. So I thought he was good for them last season as well. The next team, obviously, Real Sociedad is someone who's rather erratic. As I sent a question in for your pod about it and whether they rotate because they keep seem to rotating with a squad which actually is quite thin. Which is surprising, and it's just a case of trying to find that 11, I guess. And obviously, Sporting Gijón, who obviously I like watching last season with Johnny, as I mentioned, but I've gone on a real slump recently and lost their last four matches. So, do you see Sporting as a shoe-in for a relegation battle? And obviously, Sociedad are in the top half of the table in ninth, but that form needs to get sorted out.
Yeah, I think Real Sociedad will finish in that eighth to 12th kind of region. What they it's good to see Vela playing well, isn't it? A Carlos Vela who's prepared to put a bit of effort in, as opposed to stand around showing us how skillful he is.
Yeah,
So a bit of work, and Real Sociedad are fine. Not a massive amount of change, because they keep the Basque core into their team. They brought in William Jose, who's looked okay to me actually, looked pretty decent for Real Sociedad. Certainly a better signing than Jonathas was the previous
yeah.
season. And Sporting's disappointing, isn't it? Because they started the season like you said, it's 2 wins and a draw,
Mm.
wasn't it? The first 3 games. They signed a lot of new players, probably too many. I can understand why he wanted to, because they'd had the transfer ban the previous year. And so the
Yeah,
team that narrowly survived last year, controversially survived because Villarreal didn't play properly on the last day of the season.
yeah,
And so you can understand why he wanted to change that team around. Changed it a lot, and it looked as though they got lucky really in the first few games. But yeah, they are plummeting. They'll definitely be in a relegation battle, but then
yeah,
half the league will be in a relegation battle. That's just the way it is, isn't it? In that
yeah,
the top teams are very strong, and the bottom teams are there's some good tactical footballing teams down there. The notion that the bottom half of the Premier League is automatically stronger because it's got more money is I think nonsense. But a lot of those teams down the bottom of La Liga are very similar in ability to each other.
yeah, definitely. Briefly, before I ask you the hardest question to finish, with Depor, Osasuna, and Granada. Osasuna and Granada, you'd have to, they're obviously easy picks for people to think they're going to go down with their form of not winning a game. With thoughts on that quickly?
Yeah. Osasuna don't have a lot of quality. Although Sergio Leon, who they signed, who was the top scorer in the Segunda last season, so he looks a good player, but they're short of quality, and so they are bound to struggle, no doubt about that. Deportivo short of goals again. Um, Ryan Babel scored a brilliant one for them to win at
Yeah,
the
right,
weekend.
Bob.
But yeah, it's going to be a struggle for goals for them. And Granada, what a mess they've made because they signed the Paco Hemeth. Paco Hemeth is
Yeah,
hugely popular with fans of other teams because he would set up his teams in a very very difficult way for his own players to get the hang of it. They played almost like a Pep Guardiola team, but without Pep Guardiola style players. And it was a very difficult thing to get right. And he came in, so it's a new club. He got relegated last season with Rayo.
mm,
Not a real disgrace because of the resources available. He kept them up for 4 seasons. So Granada come in. They've got a load of loan signings, quite a lot of young players. They sold basically the whole 11 that you know from last season had all gone,
Mm.
and he chucks them all in. Tries to get a tune out of this team. They got 2 points in the first 6 games. They sacked him. So
Yeah.
it's what they expected to happen with a whole new set of players, new owners, new everything at that club. To then
Yeah.
sack him half a dozen games into the season just didn't make any sense. They've gone back now to
No.
Lucas Alcaraz, who's had a couple of goes there in the past, but there won't be a player there that he knows. He'll walk in and he'll know where the dressing room is, and he'll know where to park his car, but he won't know anyone because they're different
Yeah.
owners, they're different players, and different everything at Granada. So yeah, I mean, it's 7 games in, so let's not draw any massive conclusions from it. But you're right,
Yeah.
Osasuna, Granada are going to be in a relegation battle.
Yeah, certainly. And to finish off, the hardest pairing of them all, in my opinion, is my boys Espanyol, who had a manic summer of abusing their new money with certain players. Some I was excited about, like Leo Baptistao, I thought was good. Liked Reyes coming in, but he hasn't really got much game time. Javi Frega, obviously with experience, and they've had some other players as well. Gerardo obviously came from Watford, and a new manager in Quique Sanchez Flores, who was at Watford and did well last season. Surprisingly, got the sack. And then obviously you got the big gun in Valencia, who is obviously they've now brought in Prandelli, who I thought was an odd signing, not signing, but appointment, because obviously he hasn't done too much since the Italy job. Didn't do that great in Galatasaray. Obviously made his name at Fiorentina. So those pairings it's going to be tricky, but you've got a couple of minutes to do it.
Right. Well, two teams who should be better than they are, aren't they, at the moment? Both hovering around the edge of the relegation. Well, Valencia are in the relegation zone, aren't they? Espanyol, I don't get what Kike is doing. I don't know why he seems to be playing players out of position. Victor Sanchez playing at left back a lot of the season. Don't get that. They signed David Lopez, you would have thought to play as a midfielder. Don't get why he's playing as a central defender. So that's baffling. I think Gerard Moreno has obviously been is in pretty good goal scoring form. Don't share your optimism about Reyes. I don't see that was.
That's just reminiscent of an Arsenal fan. That's all it is.
Yeah, a long time ago though, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
And I just think I don't see now Reyes in his mid-30s as the answer to make a move
Yeah,
to a new club with ambitions. The Chinese owners a lot now in the
yeah.
league, aren't they? Talking about the Champions League, I think it's a long way away. Espanyol fans, I'm afraid. But again, they're decent players. It's just yet another team with a new coach and a load of new players. And
Yeah.
so that is why I think for all the the stronger teams are at the top and the weaker teams are at the bottom, but there is a lot of shaking up to be done yet in this La Liga table. And Valencia, you could do a whole podcast on Valencia. It's
Easily. Yeah.
it's just a crazy situation. For all of your reservations about Prandelli, I'm optimistic. At least he's an experienced football manager, which you'd think would be the first thing on your list, wouldn't you? But obviously,
exactly.
it's the team that appointed Gary Neville, who, for all of his playing ability, great on the telly, well, yeah, everything. He couldn't speak Spanish. He'd never been a football manager before. He didn't know anything about La Liga. You would have thought those three things might have disqualified him for the job. So there he came in. Paco Ayestaran came in, looking for all the world like a caretaker manager, but no, they decided to appoint him. And again, I love Paco. He's I know Paco because he's worked with us at Sky quite a few times, and he's a lovely bloke. But his track record, he's never coached in La Liga before. He'd been a manager in Israel and Mexico, and he's a reliable, good number two and good bloke, so people like him. But bearing in mind the money they've invested into Valencia, I would have thought the first thing to do would be to get yourself a very good coach, to get yourself, and to go for the biggest name that you can, even if they'd set their sights on Mourinho. And told the world that's who they were going for, and then had to drop a level down below that. But they went for Nuno, who was basically George Mendes, the agent's mate, and then Gary Neville is a replacement, Paco Ayestaran, and so by comparison, Prandelli is a shoe-in, rock-solid appointment. He doesn't speak Spanish, and as you say, his main success was with Fiorentina, which is 6 years ago or something. I think he left there now. So. Who knows with Valencia? They've got a decent set of players, no centre forward. If they get themselves a centre forward, there's no reason that they can't be finishing top 8. But then we kept saying that last season, didn't we? They just survived. A crazy club.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I find it shocking that they didn't, when they, as soon as they found out that Man City were getting Pep Guardiola, just try and get on the phone to Pellegrini. Personally,
Yeah,
that's what I would have done.
yeah, but he's
Um,
resigning now, isn't he? So
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
so
So,
yeah,
but yeah, we'll have to finish it there because I know you're a busy man. So I appreciate you coming on, John, as always, and I'm sure we'll hit you up in end of the season to do more of a review of what's going on.
yeah. You can play all these predictions back to me and see how far away I
Yeah.
am.
Thank you. Thanks a
All
lot.
right.
Obviously, listeners, thanks for listening. You can check out the weekly pod that should be out now and our English breakfast podcast that came out the weekend. But in those immortal words of Chris, rather, keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. Thank you for listening to the Football Hipsters podcast.